Hey, welcome to Millennial Spectrum. The episode this week was pretty good. A good conversation in the stuff that we went through. I think you're really going to like it. I'm here with the real deal, Emil. What do you got for us, Emily? Give us a breakdown.
Okay, so we start talking about Eyes Wide Shut, which started from a discussion that we talked about a certain family potentially throwing certain parties, which led to us both watching Eyes Wide Shut, which is an almost 3 hour long movie about
Talking about sexual taboos, and we go through that. We also talk about kind of the origin and potential rumors of that movie, as far as its length and duration, and the real editor or the real director's cut that some people have claimed to be out there.
And then we talk about how not only is it about that family, but it's just about sexuality as a whole. And I feel like it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah, it was an interesting piece. Again, to watch it again and go through it and kind of going through it with an analytical eye about the stuff it was either making nods to and concerning with children and lifestyle preferences and all this that was in there.
So we go over the timeline, we go over our thoughts of the movie. That's part one. Part two is going to be completely off the cusp. It's not about Eyes Wide Shut at all. So that's going to be part two.
So anyway, that's this episode. So if you want to hear our opinions about Eyes Wide Shut, about how the movie is kind of relating to since that time period moving forward, our experiences personally, and then the things that you hear about in the news and in social media currently that are going on, and how much of that was echoed in that piece from the late 90s?
Exactly. Right? And then kind of the different parallels we've seen from that movie to different movies.
So check it out. Thanks for joining us on the Millennial Spectrum. Eric and Emily, subscribe, and share. Please. Thank you. We love you. Check out this episode. It's pretty good. Hey, welcome to this episode of Millennial Spectrum. You just heard the recap, and now we're going into it. So we did our homework assignment, and we watched Eyes Wide Shut independently. And I took some notes, and it'll be interesting some of the things I took away from the movie and kind of see what Emily has to say after watching it. But man, it was a lot of TNA, that's for sure. I forgot the opening scene there just with Nicole Kidman and stuff. I was like, whoa. And then from there on, it's just like a supermodel trip of nude supermodels. Actually, I was laughing to myself at one point. I felt like a hunter in the woods studies animal prints in the ground. Because all the people, the scenes where the women are all wearing masks, I was trying to identify what woman I thought was what by their body. Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely a Cassandra, because you can notice by the puffiness of the. So yeah, it was. There was a lot of nudity in that movie.
It's not safe for work. That's for sure.
That is for sure.
It kind of blew my mind. I'm not gonna lie, just because there's so many connections that I've seen in real world. Okay. Basically, if you've ever seen Squid Games, it is a direct reflection of that movie.
Oh really?
It's wild.
I still haven't watched Squid Games, so.
When I watched Squid Games, that was kind of pre my dive into the family, and so I didn't know that much about it, but it's the masks look almost identical. The black coats versus the red coat is huge in that, and so I think there's a lot of symbolism there. There is a huge difference, though, in what the rituals are.
Yeah, I mean, well, if we're going to go right in the ritual, but I mean, let's just talk about the movie, walk through the movie. So some of the things I found to be interesting about the movie Eyes Wide Shut was, again, rewatching it with this conspiratorial mind and stuff now. And first of all, just how diametrically opposing or how different the chaos was in Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's apartment or house. They had a pretty nice big house, which when the scene opens up, it's in this bedroom, in this bathroom, and it's cluttered, and they're doing these mundane tasks, but they're putting on the costume of the wealthy, right?
Right.
So they almost looked impoverished in the beginning, but putting on the costume of the wealthy, they're making this transformation. So I thought that was done on purpose. I thought Kubrick was showing us going from this chaotic, looked like a simple house with kids stuff on the refrigerator, and their bathrooms were a mess, and their bedroom was so chaotic, right? It's everywhere you look, there was things piled on top of stuff. It was giving my OCD was going crazy. I'm clean up your place. And then they leave the bedroom. As they leave the bedroom, the house then is all lined with all these works of art.
Okay.
So now they're like in this very clean home with all these works of art everywhere. And then they go into the living room, and it was around the Christmas time period. So there was like Christmas decorations and
Mm-hmm.
stuff out. And the dining area was clean and simplified. And then the kitchen was very clean and like very nice, but had some areas of that chaos, like on the refrigerator and things like that. And so I just found that to be so interesting, the polar opposition of the type A personality, highly structured, clean, neat, which you see all throughout the rest of the movie. All
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the movie is like these, and it showed that time and time again. Like when he went into the prostitute's house and how her place was a mess and tiny, and there was bras drying with pizza boxes and
Mm-hmm.
Christmas gifts stacked on top of the pizza boxes. Just like that chaos of that more impoverished lifestyle versus where they would go visit and these grand buildings with a huge staff and everything is pristine and there's no clutter anywhere. And so like the Kubrick really did a good job of trying to show like what he felt was the difference in the mentality of the people just by the settings.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think about that, but that's super
Well,
true.
I came in with this analytical mindset and I was watching this stuff. And just the opening scene with Nicole Kidman like nude basically getting ready, and it's very clean and it's
Yeah.
just her. And then it shows her in the bathroom like prepping, putting makeup on or having
Mm-hmm.
her glasses on, and their bathroom is a disaster. It looks like a college girls bathroom.
College
Yeah,
girls.
college girls bathroom. I have two daughters. They put everything out all over the counter. Like my daughter, it looks like 5 people moved in when she uses the bathroom. So that's how their bathroom looked, and their bedroom was like that. It was a transition. They transitioned from the bathroom to the bedroom to the hallway to the house area. And what I felt like is each area they went through, it was like this process they showed where they
Mm-hmm.
went from this chaotic and then they put their costumes on, these expensive gowns and their tuxedo and his suit, and then they entered into the bedroom and picked up their finishing items like his watch and things like that. And then they went into the hallway. It was like classic works of art, very clean, no clutter anywhere. And so then they eventually go to that party. So it was like this transformation of them going, because all the different colors too. It reminded me of like a kid's playroom, their bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
It had so many different colors and products everywhere, and like way more stuff than a person could need. It was all out on shelves. It was all lining the bathroom counter, all on the back of the toilet, everywhere. It was just a mess. And then it was like they went in the bedroom and it was messy, but less of so. And then in the hallway, it was very bright works of art against a basic neutral background. And then they go in the living room, and the living room was very clean and orderly, like as far as what they wanted to be there. And then the dining area was even more so, and the kitchen was even more so. So I just found that to be an interesting transition of how it went from where they lived, their domicile area, their bathroom and their bedroom were so chaotic, to everything else being much more type A, clean, like not stuff all over the place.
Yeah.
Then they eventually, it was like they were showing you this transformation of the characters too, like of what they wanted to do, kind of. That's how I felt.
I know it's true because I couldn't quite figure out what their situation was because he's a doctor,
Right.
but then their house seems so modest, and then he didn't have like costume, or maybe he just didn't want to go home. I don't know, but then he had to rent the costume, and I guess that comes later, and that was kind of a giveaway.
Well, they even make the note that when he's talking to his friend later on in the movie, like, how did they figure you out? Because he had the
Yeah.
passcode. He said, well, you came, everyone else arrived in a limo and you arrived in a taxi that you left waiting, running at the gate. Then they took your coat and they found the receipt inside of it that you rented the jacket.
Oh my
So,
gosh, there's so much. So yeah, I couldn't really understand what their living situation was, but that's a really interesting viewpoint on it.
and it looked like they had an expensive place, though. It looked like he was in this transition of having, well, just like anyone else does, like having going from being a college student to working a job and having money. And this, they were in that transition period where it looked like he was a newer physician and he was being introduced to this world of more money and more. I don't know. It's just that difference of, it was like for me, it kept making me think of like watching them going through some kind of adolescence maturing phase. And even the movie wraps up with them having that conversation, like this adventure and this experience that they had together. And during that time period, like an experience for them.
They've woken up from the dream.
Yeah, they talk about being awakened, right?
We could probably talk forever about why it's called Eyes Wide Shut.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that's really symbolic
Yeah.
too. But yeah, so they go to the party, which I didn't figure out whose party that even was. Was it his like colleague's party? Because that guy gets reintroduced again.
Yeah, he's the one who ends up talking to him at the end of the movie, consulting him when he tells him like how much stuff he stepped in by invading that space. And he said, if I told you the names of these people, like you wouldn't be able to sleep at night, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting, but that was his party, and those people were there. And like those characters were there at that party as well, right?
Okay, I did not put that together.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I think the one gentleman. So I told you before I watched it that the gentleman that Nicole Kidman talks to in the beginning, I think after watching this now that champagne was all laced with like a hormone or a pheromone or something.
It had to have been because her personality changed
Completely
really
changed.
fast. And
I mean, she was like she was high on pheromones or something.
she had to have been because
And she found this guy who was not really attractive. I mean, he was smooth. He wasn't an unattractive guy, but
he
she
was
was like,
significantly like older. Like he
yeah,
had
he was
to
like
have been
70 years old or more.
She's like in her 20s.
Yeah, and she was being swooned by him. And he also, the fact that he picked up her champagne, he was drinking a drink, like a scotch or something, and talking to another woman who left, who I believe was in a later scene at the other thing too. But he turned and noted her drink and then studied her drink and took it and drank it in front of her. And it almost reminded me of like when people go to a party and they do drugs and like one person pops a pill of ecstasy. I've never done it, but in the movies, right? I should say when people do recreational, whatever's safe to say.
I don't know
what
we can say.
You know what I'm talking about. So when they do something, or like people crack a ceremonial beer together. Like,
okay, yeah.
You're like, you take a shot and I take a shot, right? And we're showing that we're going to that level together. It's like this communal thing. So he did that and drank her drink to completion in front of her. And that made me think like, oh, that drink is laced. Like he was doing that as a way, because he could have taken a sip of her drink and been like, oh, this is excellent, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that he drank and finished it showed me that he was like taking the trip down the rabbit hole that she was going down with her. And that's why he was pursuing her so hard. Like,
yeah.
It was like he knew that she was drugged, in my opinion, and he was trying to go on that adventure with her. And he kept pursuing it. Like,
because
hard.
it was like a complete 180 where I was like, what is going on? That seemed like such a significant scene, and did we ever see that guy again?
No, and he was where was he from? Hungary? Is that where
I think, yes. Yeah, I think
he was from? So that's another interesting thing that plays into it. But that's the character that I watched other people's breakdown, and they talked about that he was supposed to be representative of one of those families, and that there was going to be, like, in the end of the movie, Nicole Kidman has some lines where she talks about how we took this journey together and how we went through this, and she's having these breakdowns. But really, the whole movie is Tom Cruise's adventure.
You know, at the end of it, I realized that. I was like, Nicole Kidman is in here, but not really.
Right. And so it was like, but at the end of the movie, she spoke to him as if both of them had this experience that they went on separate and then came back together. Because he said, oh, forever, like implying that they're going to be married and stay together, that they went their separate ways for a while and came back together. But we never saw Nicole Kidman's trip other than that one night. And then there's that period where she's echoing about her dreams. Because I fast forwarded through a bunch of stuff too, so that I could watch all of it and just watch the scenes.
Really?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
As soon as it was like something, I was like, oh. But so I probably missed some key stuff. But there was that one conversation that she was having where she was talking to him about her dream and being in the field and lying nude and then being surrounded by people, and then hundreds of men took her or something like that. And she said there were so many, I don't even know how many there was. And it was like echoing in his head again at the end of the film, because he kept fantasizing about her with that, you know, the service member or whatever all throughout the film, right? And that was like his motivation to go get himself some.
Well, that's what I find like super interesting. I guess like at the party, she's dancing with that guy, and it's just like she has to be under the influence of something.
It was obvious. She was immediately like she was intoxicated, and they showed her slam that champagne when she walked in. But one thing of champagne doesn't change. She was like it was like a pheromone change or something. Like she was fighting her mind versus her body. That's how it came across to me. So she walks in. They come in. She walks in, pulls off the tray, downs a thing of champagne, and then heads to the bar. She says, I'm going to go get a drink.
Okay.
And on her way, she grabs off of a platter, and it was mostly all women I saw that were grabbing that. She grabbed a flute of champagne and slammed it, and then went to the bar and had another flute there. And she was drinking another flute of champagne, and that's when the gentleman next to her picked up her drink and waited for her to make eye contact with him, and then he downed her drink. A flute of champagne isn't enough to, I mean, it's enough to loosen you up maybe a little bit, to put you in the right...
Not to be like how she was, though.
Yeah, and she was there so fast. And then he went from being casual to being more and more, I want to say like debonair, like he was really putting it on.
Yeah, where he like kept saying, are you alone? And she was like,
Right.
no, my husband's here. And then he wanted to still like take her to the other room.
Well, he's like, oh, a husband like yours, basically implying like a husband like yours knows that you deserve to be passed around or be with other people. And then he wanted to show her the art sculpture upstairs, and it was an invitation to go hook up, obviously.
Right, because he was just like, why was it him or was this her later who was saying like, why is a woman who looks like you even married?
Yeah, he said that in it like real early.
Yeah.
And she said back like that's part of it. Like she was saying for her position was like that's part of it, to be attractive, to be desired, but not be just with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
There's a value in that.
Right. So while she's like dancing with him, Tom Cruise is then in that guy's room.
Saving that woman.
Who
ends up saving, she's the one who ended up saving him, correct?
I think it had to have been.
And again, he said like that was another thing. She was doing a drug, and it was a mixed drug, and he was saying like Tom Cruise's character said like, well, what else did she take? So he was implying that there was like a reaction. In my opinion, it seemed as if he was implying there was a reaction with another drug.
Well, because that guy knew real fast what she took.
Yeah, well, he said he witnessed her take it or whatever. Okay,
so I guess I thought that woman was the same person.
Was Domino?
I thought so, no. But I guess not. Okay.
No, that wasn't Domino. But I think that's what I'm still confused. If Domino was the woman who gave her own life, or it was his patient, which was the woman that had been with that guy. And that was the woman who was in the morgue, correct? I don't think we saw Domino again. Maybe we did, but it's hard to tell when you're just looking at nude bodies and face masks. Like I said, I found myself wanting to be like, I was like trying to inspect, like, okay, I think that's the same set of boobs from over here. You know?
Well, it's hard to tell because their voices were all muffled in the mask.
Right. Well, let's just run through the movie. So we had the opening scenes, then we had the party scene. Then we go into the confession scene, the smoke, yeah. And she talks about her desire experience to where she was going to give up her whole life to have one night with this guy that gave her a passing glance. And that seemed to just unravel Tom Cruise's character. And then it got broken by the phone call of the passing of his patient. And he went and talked to the daughter, and then the daughter of that guy like confessed her undying love for him.
That was a weird part for me.
There's so many things I want to just at least touch over, because there's all these themes about sexual taboos that were in that movie, or immoralities, or however you want to look at it. But I'm not going to use the word taboos just to be non-offensive to people, but however you view it, because there was stuff involving children. There was stuff involving a lot of homosexual undertones and ideas. Like when he got assaulted for no reason and was accused of being a homosexual, he was like walking on the street, and that group of what looked like fraternity guys like all of a sudden decided to pick on him and push him into the car. And that was a bizarre scene. And then it made me wonder, like, his pursuit of the piano player, were they teasing at that? Like, what relationship did he have with the piano player?
I know.
Because he was like they talked so closely. Like, did you notice when they first met up, they were too close. Like, for me, if you're shooting that scene, it was like they got so close when they were talking that was a space where it was like you're getting preemptive towards like making a move on someone.
Well, and they were really fast to say, are you married? Like, are you with somebody?
Wait, what are you talking about?
With the piano guy, like it was obvious that they hadn't seen each other in years because he
Oh.
said, "Are you married?" Like they
Mhm.
said that really fast. He's like, "Are you married?" And I thought that was weird. I was like, they seem like they're really good friends,
Mhm.
but he has it. He said he was married for 9 years.
Yeah,
So
they hadn't seen him for over 10 years or
it's
something.
been a long time.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear that it had been over 10 years since he'd seen him, but it's just they asked really fast if they were married, and they both were married with kids. And so I thought that was interesting that they really hadn't kept up with each other at all.
So it totally gave me the impression that they had slept together or had some kind of deal. And that's why that he was excited like that to see him, that he had had a homosexual relationship with the piano player. I think that's
Okay.
in my opinion, I think that's what the movie was hinting at.
Okay.
And then it made more sense to me later on why they did that scene where he was like kind of assaulted by those guys randomly and called, and called names and stuff and antagonized. And I think that was Kubrick's way or their way of driving home that point to where the people in the movie were like hinting at that he had experimented with that or done that because it was on his way to go. And then after that, he went to the piano player.
Yeah, so he went to his patient who'd passed, and then his daughter just like threw herself all over him, which just seemed like that kind of came out of left field a little bit.
Well, so and he gets that, and then he's walking, and he gets picked up by Domino, the prostitute.
Mhm.
Right? Was it? I can't remember the exact timeline. If it was Domino, the prostitute, and then he went to the piano player, because so much happened in a
Yes.
short period of time.
I know. But it was a really long movie, but they crammed a lot in there.
Yeah.
It's,
It was effectively like 2 days, right?
yes, I think so. Yeah, because he finds Domino, or Domino finds him, but he was like, just because of that vision that Nicole Kidman told him about, he
Yeah.
was like going to
Obsessed with it.
he was obsessed, yeah, with having his own like lived out fantasy, I
Right.
think.
An affair.
An affair.
It was like that was his motivation. And it almost seemed he was trying to find it wherever it was being offered to him. Like that's why I think he was even pursuing the piano player a bit, was that he wanted to go home with it. Like he was saying like you're not Tom Cruise's character was saying like you're not leaving here without taking me, and he was talking about the party, but it was like this hinting of like him interested in the piano player, I felt like.
Yeah, that whole piano player was interesting. I'm still trying to figure that one out, like just that relationship. But yeah, because he meets Domino, and I think he would have went all the way if Nicole Kidman hadn't called him.
Oh, okay.
Because
And that's what broke
she
it up.
called him and was just like, "Are you coming home?" And he was just like, "No, I'm still at the patient's." And then Domino said, "Is that your wife?" And that like snapped him out of it, I guess,
Yeah.
for a minute. And so then he was just like, "Yeah." And so he leaves.
Well, and then the earlier phone call of the patient who passed away snapped him out of what was about to happen in that conversation, right? Because you could see he was like riling with anger when she had confessed about her wanting to leave her whole life to have one moment with that guy who looked at her for a second.
Which is interesting because she only said that because of the conversation that they had prior. She did not like that he said he could trust her and he wasn't worried that she'd ever step out on him. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think that she liked being labeled as being so like safe, which is interesting.
She wanted to feel desired, I think, too.
From him.
Especially after that. She probably had more of those pheromones or whatever running through her system. And when she used the other recreational drug, it probably brought that back out of her. But then she had just been heavily pursued by that guy in that mindset. So that's got to be all in her system.
Right, because she was trying to get Tom Cruise to be like, I was flirting with those girls.
Mhm.
And he was like, no.
He was being carried off to the rainbow room, whatever that was. Remember?
Yeah, that's right.
They're like, oh, we're going to take you to the end of the rainbow or something like that. So that again brought back that idea of like ecstasy or some kind of pheromone or whatever that I think those most of the women at that party were under.
We're under it. That's why I want to know. But what's interesting is they said that they get invited to this party every year.
Yeah.
But what was so different about this one?
They probably do the same thing every year. What do you mean? What would be different?
Well, like this one, he like went on a whole journey.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah.
So it's interesting, but then
Well, and then hold on. So I'm trying to go through and just hit all the points of the movie before we get too entrenched in one area. So then he goes there, he goes to piano player, then he determines he needs an outfit to get in. He has a password, but he needs an outfit. He needs a costume, a mask, and a cloak and stuff like that.
Which is interesting to me because so the piano player said, I go to this party and I'm blindfolded. The piano player is the reason why he went to the party at all.
Right.
But the piano player only had a blindfold on. He didn't have a costume.
Because he wasn't a part of what was going on.
So he didn't know what was going on.
Right.
That's what I find interesting.
He was just a hired piano player.
If you don't know what's going on, why would you invite your friend?
Yeah, well, yeah. Like there's a setup there, I guess. Probably just because you're like, oh my God, I worked this deal where these people are doing this wild stuff. Like this is crazy. Like I'm sure he had to have known, even if he's wearing a blindfold, I'm sure he could see naked legs and vaginas everywhere. Because I mean, you have a blindfold on and you're looking like this, and everyone, all the women were completely nude. So even if I had a blindfold on and I'm being led around, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't think anyone's wearing any clothes.
Yeah.
This has got to be a wild party. And I'm sure the people were making noises. The one thing that was weird to me was see, now you're getting me derailed on it. So then he goes and he gets the costume.
Okay.
And he meets the new shop owner who interrupts his teenage daughter in a threesome with two other like Asian males, which I found to be odd too, that they chose Asian males.
Who were dressed as women.
Yeah, they were both like kind of in drag. They had makeup on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So again, this movie hit like on all these sexual, what I want to call sexual taboos or areas or discussion points where it was like homosexuality, infidelity, child stuff, prostitution, child prostitution, cults, drugging people. I mean, it was like, it didn't like hammer you over the head with it, but it like touched on all of them, right?
It's like, yeah.
The only thing that I was missing was like bestiality or something like that.
Honestly,
that I'm aware of. I guess I got to watch it again.
Yeah. Honestly, like if you think about when this was made in the 90s, like it is kind of wild how much stuff is in this movie.
And he gets the costume and he takes a taxi cab and goes to the house, right?
Yeah, and the taxi cab, I didn't even think about that until it was brought up later, how significant that moment was going to be. But yeah, so he takes a taxi cab to this mansion that honestly kind of looked like another famous mansion that we know.
Sure.
So then he's in that mansion.
And then whoever is kind of not running it, but some people there. And I don't know still to this point if that was his friend who gave him the nod, who was wearing the pointy mask with the captain's hat. Like, I'd like to watch it again to figure out which person that was. If that was his friend in the beginning and the end of the movie that had the consultation with him. If that was him, and that's why he gave him the nod and recognized him. Because he confessed to him at the end that he was there. And the way they looked at each other was like they knew each other. But obviously, Tom Cruise's character didn't know anyone.
Which was interesting that he even admitted that he was there, because I thought the whole point was to not.
Right. Well, I think he wanted to impress upon him like the damage control and not see his friend. That's what I got out of it, was he was doing damage control for that group and not to see his friend, Bill, get caught up in this and end up in the newspaper in an overdose or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the other individual.
Oh my gosh, there's just so much that I can't hold down.
And then they do that ceremony where they have the women inside there and they drop the cloaks and then they go and pick people, and a woman just randomly picked him, which didn't feel random at all. She let him out there and said, like, you shouldn't be here. So she knew who he was.
Literally, like, risked her life for him. And I was just like, I want to know that connection.
Yeah. So it made me think, like, as I was watching this, I was like, is this like the whole initiation ritual? Like, did we watch Tom Cruise's character, Bill, be initiated into this group?
Probably. That's what I didn't understand, was what the ritual was, and it was a long ritual. Like I remember thinking, like, while I was watching it, that I was surprised how long they were spending time on this ritual.
Right.
That it almost didn't feel like it was written, honestly.
Well, and it was like, why was it that long in the movie? Mm-hmm. We get it. They were doing this ritual with it, so we get it. But they like showed almost every single person being sent off except for like the last 4 women or something. They kind of sped up that part. But before that, it was like, and I smudge you, and you take off your cloak, and you go, and then you go. Right?
Like, I was surprised by how long they showed it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So So then he gets led away, and then the guy in the pointy mask and the hat then brings another woman over to be with him. And then again, the woman who ends up saving him comes out of nowhere and pulls him away and says, I'll return him back. So that guy like gave him someone to go be with. So again, I don't know if that was the friend or someone else.
I wish at the end they would have all pulled off their masks so we could have at least known, but I understand that's not the point of the movie. But yeah, so then Tom Cruise just can't help himself. Like literally.
Well, I mean, he wasn't doing anything crazy. I mean, he basically wedding crashed.
Well, no, but like yeah, but he couldn't like help himself after given like so many warnings to just leave. Like he couldn't
the warnings
leave,
to
you know?
leave,
It's
yeah.
that's what I mean by like he couldn't help himself. It's like that girl told him several times like you shouldn't be here. It's going to be really bad for you. And then even when he went into that room with the red cloak man and he even said, "Now's your time to leave." And then he still couldn't leave. It's like he was just so drawn to that.
I would have stripped down, man. He's like,
Would
just
you?
strip down. I'm like, all right, here we go.
He like
No.
just,
I'd be like, all right, now what? We're doing the hokey pokey? What are we doing here? Yeah.
I know, because it's like, because he didn't, he knew the one password, but he didn't know the second password.
Well, he didn't know there wasn't a second password.
That was a
That
twist.
was revealed later, which I think I remembered when I was watching it. And I was like, tell him there's not a second one.
I know, he should have just been like, there's not one, because the friend would have told him, but...
But I mean, the friend was just entertainment, so he wasn't in with the crowd.
That's true. Which I'm still kind of...
The friend wasn't wearing a mask, banging supermodels.
No, he was one of like the...
He was just entertainment. Yeah, like... one of the poors.
Yeah.
Not the...
The separation for sure, because he wasn't... He clearly was like a worker and not a part of the party, and they made that known. But yeah, I mean, like literally, they told him several times, they're like, you don't want to be a part of this, your family's gonna get involved.
Yeah.
And he's just like, okay. But then taking off his clothes was like the final straw for him.
And then he was like, oh, this is too much.
I know, it's like you did everything else.
Yeah.
But I won't do this.
I'll be like, okay, here we go, what's next? That's what I would have been doing. Like, well, okay, what's the next step? I guess, I mean, if you're going to dive into that world and you're going to be there amongst those people, like, you've pretty much, like, if you've gone that far, I feel you've made a firm decision that you're just going down the rabbit hole. And at that point, you just have to commit. And whatever it is, that's what you're doing.
Well, that's what I didn't understand either. I was like, there's literally naked women around you all over. It's not like you being naked is going to be that, like, shocking in this situation. It's you're standing next to a woman who is naked.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, so like literally, this woman comes down and is just like, let him go. I'll be the redeemer in this situation. And then he's just like, cool. I'm still not going to take off my clothes. I'm just going to let you do that for me.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, and then another thing that was interesting too was note how you noted basically all the women were nude and they were passed around like goods. But there were some men that were nude because they were performing acts on the women, right? And then people were standing around. And first of all, it looked like a very boring party. Let's be honest. Right? They're all standing there. I mean, they have these blank expression masks on and they're all just standing there. Like, it was like I want to say the nerds. It was like the nerds at like a party. Like, they were watching these other people doing these acts, like partying, right? And they're all just standing there like,
Yeah, what are they getting off with that?
Like, I know, I thought that was bizarre. And so then there was guys that were performing acts. And I wasn't sure if the guys that were performing acts were part of the cloaked group. Like, does the cloak group like actually get down with any of these women or no? Because Tom Cruise obviously didn't, but I didn't see anyone else from that circle get involved with that. And then there were men that were fully nude, not just like having their cloak like or their pants off, right? Fully nude men that were committing these acts that people were standing around watching then. And then as he departed, there was a fully nude male and a clothed male dancing together right in the middle where everyone was dancing, and it was like a male and a female, so it'd be a clothed male and a nude female dancing, and then there was one where it was a clothed male and a nude male. Also, it made me think, like, were the guys who were performing acts on the women not a part of the group?
Oh, probably not, because I can't remember. Did you see their faces?
No, yeah, you didn't see their faces. No, you saw no one's face. And So it was like symbolic. So like the guys who were there performing, were they just performing for those people to watch, and they weren't a part of the families? Were they just like the prostitutes that were there and the former Miss Americas and stuff like that?
Probably.
That's what made me think. So when you're initially watching the movie, you're thinking that these wealthy guys are getting together and like hooking up with these models or whatever. But then as I was watching it further in the scenes, I was like, I think that these are all just like you talked about or has been discovered in the Diddy stuff, is that they hired male and female performers just to go at it, and they would just watch them, and that's what it seems like was being portrayed. And the other odd thing too was
Yeah.
the mocking kissing stuff. Like I understood the
Yeah.
mock kiss when they were doing it like mass to mass and ceremonial, but then when they're like going having hardcore acts, they were like 69ing each other with masks on.
Right?
So was that just symbolic because they couldn't show it in the movie? Were you supposed to assume that the masks were off these people at that point? And they would be like acting like they're making out. Like how stupid would that be? You're like, hey, you're like, they were like, wild humping, and then like acting like they were kissing all over the woman's chest with the mask. It's just, it was bizarre, and it wasn't
was
the act.
bizarre.
It wasn't just like they were rubbing the mask on you. It was like kissing, like motion. So I
Oh.
kept being, and then the people were acting like they're kissing, or there was a woman on top of another woman, and they had their masks on like they were doing something there. I'm like, they're not doing anything there. What are people watching them play kabuki theater of doing this? So then I was like, okay, I got to remember that this is a movie that's shot so that we could watch it in a rated R cinema and not triple X.
But I just still like watching that symbolism and or the ceremony. They chose to keep, I feel like, a lot in that they probably didn't need to. And I'm still questioning why, especially because apparently there was another ritual that got cut out.
Yeah, yeah. And so the movie was 2.5 hours long, and there was quite a bit supposedly that was cut out of it. And there's people who claim that there's an original unedited version of that Kubrick had that had another ritual in it and extended scenes. And that the gentleman that Nicole Kidman's character met in the beginning was the sub, that there was supposed to be two stories, Nicole Kidman's experience and Tom Cruise's experience, happening along each other. And they just edited her whole experience out.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious that something happened to her,
Yeah.
and we just didn't see it. That makes a lot of sense to me if they did do that, because there clearly was something that was left out
Yeah.
on her side.
So we go from the party, he gets out of the party, then he goes back and finds out that he returns the clothes. He tries getting the piano player and finds out the piano player was escorted out by two men. And people left some stuff saying like if he comes back, that they would be the ones to collect this thing, that the guy went back to his home state.
Mm.
Okay. Which is weird too when you consider that he was only in town for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So was he brought in town just for these events? It seemed like it. Like he traveled.
Why would they pick him?
Yeah, he traveled across the country for 2 weeks to go do that guy's Christmas party, the ritual party, and then while he was there, he was also playing at that Sonata Lounge or Sonata Lounge that Tom Cruise went and met him up at.
Mm-hmm.
So he finds out that the guy has left his hotel room and he was escorted by two people who seemed like kind of brutes. Then he finds out that the domino information and that she had been diagnosed with a disease, and he's groping on the roommate, and the roommate was like into him immediately. Like it made me think that she had been there at the party as well, right? Because she was an attractive like model body.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He like unbuttoned her shirt and started just groping her casually.
It's like he's still, even after all of these events, was still like haunted by that vision of Nicole Kidman.
Well, every time he started to come down off of his experience, like striking out, he re-envisioned her like, doing something with that guy, and then it was like his fuel to go to the next event.
So, yeah, and then when he was at the hotel, he got like the concierge to like really give him a lot of details about the piano player.
Well, the concierge was interested in him. The concierge was sexually attracted to him, right?
That was another one.
Yeah, another nod to that. Like as soon as he turned around, he was like, "Oh, hey." I thought he was gonna be like, "Oh, you want to get a room together, Doc, or whatever." He didn't even know anything about him. So that happened.
He
Then,
returned the costume.
right, he returned the costume and found the two gentlemen exiting the back room with the teenage daughter, the underage minor.
And he was like, I thought you were going to call the police. And he's like, circumstances are different now.
Well, what you realized is that guy the room was designed to do that. And the girl got adventurous and just wanted to have that casually instead of had it paid for.
Mm.
And that's why he was mad, because they were effectively stealing merchandise from him.
Okay.
That the guys were like, hey, she brought us back here, blah, blah, blah. And at first you thought it was like,
sense.
well, you thought that it was like they were making the defense like, oh, this young girl brought us back here to have a threesome. And so we're innocent. But no, what you realize is that they were saying this person that we paid for this service with earlier invited us back, so we thought we were good to do it again.
And she was attracted to Tom Cruise as well, too. Like,
yeah, she whispered in his ear, like, basically, you want to get away. And he was kind of feeling it in that initial part, too, right? He was reacting positively to it. And then later on, he realized what was going on, and then he was like turned off by it.
Right. And then that's when he realized he didn't have the mask anymore.
Yeah. And then he finds out that his patient had been admitted and passed away from an overdose, and went and saw her in the morgue and confirmed that, and then had the recap with his friend, and then had the recap with his wife, and then they went Christmas shopping, and she ends the line with, well, you know what we have to do now? We have to go.
I know. That's literally was like the last line. And I was like, okay. Yeah. For some reason, I thought something was going to happen to the daughter, because like they weren't watching her in the store. And I just like felt like that, because the final message before he left the party was, if you tell anybody what you've seen here,
to your family.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So I thought that maybe there was going to be something, but no, I was like, okay.
I thought too, when he found the mask in the bedroom, he was going to run to go check on the daughter.
Yeah.
That would have been my first instinct. Like, if someone was in my house. But then I guess Nicole Kidman was the one who put the mask on the pillow.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Because I had kind of thought that it was like maybe someone had left it there for him to find when he returned home. And Nicole Kidman was like kind of half out of it. But I guess she had found it and put it there.
Okay.
And that's why his cry, by the way, is horrendous.
Where he's just like, I'll tell you everything.
It's so hard to cry on demand, but his cry was like this weird, awkward laugh cry. And it was it like ruined the moment for me, because he was like, you know, it felt so fake. I was like, is he laughing?
It is interesting, because they encompass those roles so well, and just knowing what we know about Hollywood, that is really interesting.
Or what we've been told.
Yeah, right? I guess we don't know. Well, yeah. I mean, we do kind of know some of the Diddy stuff that has been kind of confirmed.
And the Epstein, and the Jimmy Savile, and the, you go on and on. And the Allison Mack related to she's the small pawn in that, but anyway.
I don't know if I know her.
She was the Smallville actress that was branded with the Nixon.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the heir to some alcoholic, or some alcohol distributor fortune, was the driving force behind that. And as well as it seemed like some NGOs, some taxpayer dollars were paying for those escapades.
Yeah.
It's amazing how like U.S. taxpayers and these non-government organizations get these funding, and it's like, it's always paying for all this stuff.
It's like...
And there's never an arrest, right? You park your car illegally, you get yourself thrown in jail, but still tens of millions of dollars for sex romps on an island somewhere, and everyone's like, the IRS is like, well, you know, it happens. It's like, what the hell? How is
that doesn't just happen.
How is this reality?
It doesn't. I want to know, first of all, why Tom Cruise really wanted to go to the party that bad enough. Even the piano guy was like, how are you going to get a costume at this hour? Yeah. And he like went to great lengths to do it. Mm-hmm. I was like, why did he care so much?
Desperate man, desperate measures.
We didn't even know what he was walking himself into.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. Yeah, he was definitely on a journey to get over on his wife almost, right?
And then again, he like couldn't help himself, because he finally gets out of that mansion and then goes back the next day and then gets hand-delivered a letter basically saying, stop coming here.
And it looked like, I assumed it was whoever lived there and the guy who had pointed at him who wore the red cloak. That's who I assumed is the guy who handed him the letter.
And is the guy who wore the red cloak the patient or not the
No.
patient? Or was the patient the guy who was staring at him for like a really long time with his wife?
You're being super generic there. I'm having a hard time figuring out what you're talking about.
So in the ritual,
Yeah.
when they're just standing
Oh,
there.
it gave him the head nod that was up above?
Yes.
I thought I walked away with that thinking that that's the guy whose house that you went to in the beginning.
And at the end was like, I saw you at the party.
Yeah. I was there the whole time, yada yada.
But how? That's what I just don't understand.
And then that character, that mask, the person wearing that mask is the one who brought another woman over to him, that brunette or whatever. Standing in that that smoking lounge watching those people go at it, and he was standing by himself, and then that guy came in through the back doorway with another woman, and then the blonde woman who saved him came through the side door.
Okay.
So whatever was going to happen there, I don't know.
But I just want to know why that blonde girl literally died for him.
Right, yeah.
That is so weird to me that I cannot understand that.
Yeah. And so that's why I didn't know if it was Domino or if it was the patient that the woman that he saw earlier in the movie. Because, I'm trying to judge by nude bodies. And so the woman that he saw earlier in the movie, I don't think it was the same pair of breasts that were in the blonde woman. I really don't. I think those are two different people. Judging by my ability to track the prints there, I was like, that's not the same person. That's all I have to go on.
Did Domino have blonde hair though?
Yeah, she had like dirty blonde. I know. Well, we didn't see Domino nude. If we had seen Domino nude, I would have this locked in. But I'm trying to judge what I think Domino looked like nude based on the people who were wearing a mask, and Domino in that weird. By the way, she wore like a Southwest like stewardess dress or something, right? She looked like some kind of space stewardess. Her dress, it was so bizarre, and it had like that top piece, and I don't know. And then the boots with the red fishnet with the purple, and I was like, what does she have going on here? This outfit is confusing.
It was
and
just
the black and white striped fur coat with the hat. I was like, she has so many colors and patterns going on. It's like, whoa.
I know. But he ran into a lot of really nice people because she was really nice to him too, where she was just like, you don't have to pay me. And he's just like, no, I want to.
Well, he paid her to listen to him, I guess, or to hang out with him.
Yeah.
So.
But it was really hard to track, honestly, who was there.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where definitely people probably have to watch it over and over again to try and figure stuff out. So.
I know, I do kind of want to watch it again, but then I was just like, am I going to get like red flagged for like why is this person watching this movie so
We already
many
are
times?
anyway. We're already on watch lists or whatever.